There's only so much time in one day, and the challenge we all face when taking a trip is to make every minute count. Our first full day on Oahu, we had a 2-hour Raptor tour booked for 11 a.m. at the Kualoa Ranch on the east side of the island. Pretty far from most hotels, especially if you're staying in the Waikiki, Honolulu area. Our tour didn't start until 11 a.m., which gave us a couple hours in the morning and the rest of the day after our tour ended at 1. So my mission was to squeeze in as many of the good sights around the central Windward side that we could before and after the ranch tour. I had to draw some boundaries to keep it realistic. For this, I drew the line at the ranch our tour was at to the north and Waimanalo Bay to the south. There are a ton of things to do in this area, so I had to choose wisely. So I chose to draw a southern boundary between Kailua and Waimanalo because we planned on hanging out at Sandy Beach and Waimanalo Bay the next day after a quick hike up to Makapu'u Lighthouse, which is up a 2-mile-long paved trail on the easternmost tip of the island. The wide paved trail and moderate incline makes this a pretty easy hike for everyone. If you're looking for a little more of a challenge and want to cool off, there's a trail off the main paved trail you can take down to the tide pools. It's steep and rugged, but the payoff is worth it. The lighthouse itself sits 600 feet above the Pacific Ocean on a steep cliff overlooking the Molokai Channel. If you've never done this hike, I highly recommend it, especially during the whale watching season, which is December through March. You're guaranteed to see some whales. Leaving from Waikiki, we had about an hour drive to the ranch. So I planned our first stop at Liliha Bakery to stuff our guts full of delicious pastries. After all, we are on vacation. This place is more than just a bakery. It's actually a full restaurant with a wide selection menu. We ended up here a couple different times because the food and service is great. A little pro tip, if you go shopping at the Ala Moana Shopping Center, there's one tucked away inside of Macy's on the 3rd floor. Make sure to try an order of the sweetbread and tell them Large Marge sent you. After filling our tanks with sugar and carbs, we jumped in the car for our next stop, the Pali Lookout, right off the Pali Highway. This is a cool stop for sweeping views 1,000 feet above Kaneohe Bay in the east side. The Pali Lookout is a place of deep historical significance. Named Pali, meaning cliff, in Hawaiian, the Pali Lookout is the site of the Battle of Nu'uanu, where in 1795 King Kamehameha I won the struggle that finally united Oahu under his rule. Hundreds of soldiers died here, many of which were forced off the Pali's sheer cliffs. It will cost you $3 to park, and make sure not to leave any valuables in your car. Local thugs are known for breaking in scenic spots around the island, and it gets pretty windy up there, so having a jacket or a sweatshirt isn't a bad idea either. Leaving the lookout, we had just enough time to stop at the Byodo-in Temple, which in Japanese means Temple of Equality. This is a scale replica of the temple in Uji, Japan, and is made entirely without nails. It is customary for visitors to ring the 5-foot, 3-ton sacred bell known as Bansho, with the big wooden log called the shomuku. This is done before entering the temple for happiness and longevity. Inside the Byodo-in sits the 18-foot gold leaf Buddha, where visitors are welcome to light incense and offer a prayer. This temple sits in the middle of a cemetery and will cost you $5 per person for access to the grounds and temple. We arrived at Kualoa Ranch at 10:30, just enough time to check in and play with the horses for a few. The Kualoa Ranch is a 4,000-acre private nature reserve and working cattle ranch that sits about 24 miles from Honolulu and 32 miles from Haleiwa town at the North Shore. There are several activities and tours including horseback riding, zip lining, ATV tours, movie site tours, just to name a few. You get to stop at different film locations and historical sites with all tours. And your guide will talk about the area and what took place there. Here's our guide giving a little history of the area.
So we came from Hakipu'u, which is on the other side of that little dip, 1,000 acres, passed around the big mountain of Kualoa, another 1,000 acres. Now we're in Hakipu'u, home to 2,200 acres. The translation of Ka'ava means the wrasse fish. So back in about maybe 200 years ago, this beach was filled with this little yellow wrasse fish. If you ever wanted to catch it, you'd come to Ka'ava. Not so much, we've been overfished a lot, so you can barely find them anymore. So some things that we do over here, we pretty much film a lot of movies in this valley. This is one of the main valleys, as you can see, of the beautiful scenery. If you guys were wondering, all the land that we're traveling on, it is actually privately owned. So the first purchaser was a doctor named Dr. Judd. He was one of the first settlers to come to this island. He was a medicine doctor. He became friends with King Kamehameha III at the time. So during that time, new foreigners coming to the islands, a lot of new diseases as well. Some of the king's men was all dying because all these new diseases, getting sick, didn't know how to combat them. So Dr. Judd took the time to learn the Hawaiian language so he could translate English medicine practice to the Hawaiian language. Dr. Judd was seen such a good guy for saving all the king's men. He actually was lended $3,000 to purchase this 2,200 acres. Pretty good deal if you ask me. Then about 5 years later, an auction took place. That's where Dr. Judd purchased 1,000 acres of Kualoa, maybe around 8 grand. Then again, the Makapu'u went up for auction. He paid around 8 grand as well for that. So altogether, for 4,200 acres, paid about $20,000. Now it's pretty much priceless. Whenever we film, we don't shut down our ranch. Everything keeps going like a normal day would. We just kind of close off little portions. So the only thing it really affects is more of our tours. So sometimes you might not see the same stuff that you're supposed to see. This is a wedding spot. If anybody's ever looking to get married in the future, you can rent this whole area out, have a big party, wedding, whatever you want. You can make your own concert. If you guys notice those holes in the mountain when we were coming around that bend up there, those were military bunkers. So after the attack on Pearl Harbor, our ranch was taken over. Martial law went into effect over here. They confiscated our land. We were a military base and Air Force base for a bit. So the long stretch of Kamehameha Highway before you turn into our ranch, that was actually a 1,000-foot runway where the planes would have landed and took off. Those bunkers were built as living barracks and defense bunkers. So each cannon, or each entrance had a cannon in the front of it. Reason being, when the Pearl Harbor attack happened, the first group of bombers actually snuck right into this valley, went right over that mountain. In less than a minute, you'll be at Pearl Harbor. So we weren't even expecting them to hit us from the back. That's the way they did. So we were thinking they might do that again. Built 2 big cannons over there. Radius was about 15 miles out. Between the cannons, there was a watchtower about 5 stories up. That would have been manned 24/7, always watching on the horizon. If any planes, at least we could have defended ourselves. Thankfully, never was a second wave. Gave us back our ranch. They left those bunkers up there, but they took away all the guns. Now, if you take our movie site tour, that's that big green bus, they actually let you explore those tunnels. First 100 feet talks about the military history. Next 100 feet talks about the movies that were filmed here.
There have been over 79 movies and TV shows filmed on this ranch over the years. Some of the more famous ones include Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, 50 First Dates, and Jumanji, but that barely scratches the surface. Another famous landmark right across the street at Kualoa Regional Park is the tiny island Mokuli'i, or Chinamans Hat as most people call it. You can rent canoes and paddleboards and make your way out to the island and even hike to the top. After our 2-hour Raptor tour, we were ready for some local kind grinds. We could have eaten at the ranch, but it seemed like everything there was fried and a little overpriced. One meal I always seek out on the Windward side is huli huli chicken. There is always a food truck selling it somewhere in the area. But this time we decided to stop at Coral Kingdom and try theirs. And I gotta say, the food trucks are better, have a lot more flavor. After lunch, we decided to head over to Kailua Beach and hang out for a couple hours. This beach is one of the best on the East Coast, but can be very crowded and hard to find parking at times. You can rent kayaks and paddleboards at Kailua Beach Adventures, but you'll have to walk them over to the beach, and it's about a 7-minute walk. After some relaxation on the beach, we decided to hike up to the pillboxes in Lanikai. This is one of the best short hikes on the island in my opinion. It only takes about 15 minutes to get to the first pillbox, and the second one is just past that. The views up here are incredible, and I recommend coming in the afternoon or early evening so that the sun is above you or behind you. You have to find parking in the surrounding neighborhood to access the trailhead because there is no parking lot for it. After the hike, you can't pass up the little R&R on Lanikai Beach. This beach is beautiful and the water is crystal clear and calm. There is no parking lot for this beach either, and since you already have a parking spot for the hike, it's perfect. Don't forget to grab a couple Spam musubis before the beach. They're the perfect post-hike snack. So if you follow this itinerary, you get a pretty good mix. You get 2 great beaches, a short scenic hike, 2 hours within Kualoa Ranch, a scenic viewpoint, and a Japanese temple. Not to mention a couple food options. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below.